Right. So good morning, everyone. So welcome to Introduction to Big Data Analysis. Right. So last meeting we have discussed about introduction to big data, and I will continue with that. Right. So this is our last part of our meeting last week. Right. So what is big data? Right? So basically, it is a technology, right, and application practices for the collection, integration, analysis, and presentation of business information. So we have a set of concept and method to improve business decision making based on fact-based support. So what we want is actually to have informed decision. Okay, so when you make decision, it's not just based on intuition or based on just experience in your personal knowledge, but really based on objective knowledge, which is based on the data. Okay, so this big data analysis also means that we have in-depth analysis and then create the reporting tools for the detail of business data. Okay, so then you collect the data, you consolidate data from various sources. Okay, not just one source, but many sources, and then you query, you analyze the data automatically. Okay, and then put that result into practice. So this is the meaning of big data. Okay, so this below are the characteristic of big data analysis. Okay, first you will have what is called dashboard. Okay. Is the reporting is becoming visual because our goal is to present this to decision maker. And then in the dashboard, okay, the visualization is based on KPI, key performance indicator, right? And in the back end of this dashboard is in front, okay, in the front end, and KPI is what you see. But in the back, there are two things there. One is called OLAP, okay, online analytical processing. So this is the database system that actually gather everything in one data warehouse. Okay. And the other one is called ETL, extract, transform, unload. This means when you collect the data, okay, you standardize the way to clean the data, and then it will extract automatically and transform it into the database that you want, and then load into the database automatically. So that's the meaning of ETL. Okay, so there are the ETL, the online and scorecard is actually optional, but we can discuss about it if you want. Have you ever learned about balanced scorecard in other classes? Yes. Can you explain what did you learn there? In brief, anyone? Can anyone explain what is scorecard or balanced scorecard?
I think it provides feedback, sir, about the behavior, about the behavior or something like that.
Behavior or something like that? What?
I mean, provide the feedback. Provide the feedback, sir. I think about the business processes, maybe.
Oh, no. Probably they discuss something else. What we want in the balance scorecard is to balance between the internal and external, between financial and so on. And then you create a scorecard to achieve your strategic objective. Did you learn about that in other classes?
I think we got it briefly on F2ACC, as I recall. I think, sir.
Okay, so you already have it.
Yes, but I think I kind of forget it, sir.
Okay, So okay, I will give you one session then about scorecard. Yeah. Okay. In that case, okay, I will add remind me about it. Okay, next time. Uh, the big data analysis component is basically decision support, okay, or multi-criteria decision making. Again, these are tools that will help the computer to give you suggestion, okay, on what kind of suggestion based on data. Okay. Second part is data mining. So basically, given the data, it will show the discrimination or classification, yeah, based on data. So we will have a knowledge based on the data. And the third part, of course, the data warehouse. Yeah. This is basically database of many things. Okay, so look at this diagram. So I draw this diagram. Okay, so we have a key performance indicator of your business strategy, and then you show this in the dashboard. Okay, so where the data come from the data warehouse. Okay? The data warehouse will be fit into the data mining components. Okay, and then from there go to the decision support system, DSS, and multi-criteria decision making system. Okay, and then show back to the dashboard. So the dashboard is the front end of your big data analysis. Okay, so in the back of the all of this, you will not see. Okay, the customer will not see. It's actually very big data warehouse, and then several tools components that actually creating this decision. Okay, so the KPI, the key performance indicator, will be put by the user. Right. So I can see it different way. Okay. So from the business perspective, right? Each company will have what is called strategic objective, isn't it? So what is your goal? Of course, you will say, oh, I want to create profit. Okay, that's your overall goal, probably. Huh? Probably you are NGO, you don't want to create profit. Okay? You want to create social impact, right? So depending on your organization or your business, okay, you will have certain strategic objective, right? So based on that strategic objective, now you need to break down into several departments, right? So based on each department, now you will create strategic objective for each department. Again, if your department will have sub-department, again, the sub-department will create the strategic objective. Okay? So now based on the strategic objective, now you need to measure that strategic objective, isn't it? Now, if you measure that strategic objective, that measurement is called KPI or key performance indicator. Okay, so basically KPI will tell you something that you can measure based on data, when you want to achieve it, okay, when do you start to measure it, okay, at certain level, what level that you think that this is red, green, or yellow in the traffic signal, meaning green mean okay, yellow mean warning, red mean not okay. Okay, so that KPI means. And then those variables of KPI, you show that into the dashboard. Okay? Of course, the OLAP is in the back end, okay, the database that support this. Okay? The same thing with all the analysis tool here, regression, forecasting, anomaly detection, all this data mining part and decision making is in the back end. Is it clear? What do you mean by big data analysis here? Okay, so integrated, it's not just big data in terms of data itself, okay, but data should achieve certain strategic objective of the organization or the department and so on. Okay, so on the analysis itself, so you will collect the data. If possible, the collection of data will be automatic. Okay, computer can collect the data by itself. Okay, through sensing devices. For example, if you have a supermarket, you have a tool scanner, for example, right? From the scanner, will go automatically to the computer, and then all this barcode scanner and so on will collect that data. Yeah. The same thing, data can be gathered through the spider of the internet, for example. You scrape the website. Yeah. Or any sensing device. For example, you create IoT, yeah? Internet of Things. Okay? We will have certain sensor of humidity, temperature, and so on. So these are the data that you collect automatically. Of course, some data that you still cannot collect automatically, you still input it manually, that's fine. Okay, so you collect the data, and then what you need to do is to cleanse the data. Cleaning means you put it into uniform data table, right? And then you integrate this from various sources, okay? After that, you can query, you can search certain part of the data, and then you do some kind of reporting. The reporting is standard reporting. Okay? We will learn later about OLAP operation during this class. And then what kind of analysis usually we do. Okay? And then, of course, you can also do what is called data mining. And the last part is, of course, to monitor, to administer the warehouse itself. So at the end, big data analysis is basically decision-making tools. Now, what is the purpose? Yeah? To enhance decision-making process, right? So the purpose is to have what is called informed decision. Every decision is not based on just intuition, but based on data. Okay, so we will create actionable plan, okay, that drive the effective business activities. Okay, so in this case, right, what you will do is two kind of insight that you want to get from here. Okay? You see here, from the data, you can extract certain information, right? From the information, you can get some knowledge. Right? From the knowledge, you implement this into action. Right? So there you have two parts. One is called tactical insight, and the other one is called strategic insight. The tactical insight means you optimize the business process, for example, by identifying the trend, anomalies, the behavior for certain management action. Okay? While the strategic insight, okay, will align the multiple business process with the key business objective. So you will integrate several objectives, several process into one. So if you look at this, my question to you, is this operational or actually strategic? Is this for the top manager, middle manager, or for the lower manager? What do you think? Which part of management are using big data analysis?
Middle and top probably, sir.
Yeah, middle, upper, okay? So the lower manager doesn't need big data analysis. Clear? Right? So you see here, so the operational reporting is lower management. So this is, we call it online transactional processing, OLTP. So this is not big data analysis. Right? The big data analysis is the middle up. Okay, so management risk reporting, decision making, and talking about business value here. Is it clear now where you are? Okay, so when we talk about big data analysis, don't talk about the operational reporting, day-to-day reporting. That is not really part of what we are doing. Okay, so we are talking about tactical strategic. We are talking about a strategic insight here. So that must be the middle, upper level of the management. Okay. So next is the next component is decision support system. What is this? This is a computerized system for helping making decision. Okay. So It's a computer program applied that analyze business data and then present it so that the user can make decision for the business easily. So be careful that there are two parts actually. One is fully automatic, the other one is just suggestion. Okay? So the first part, fully automatic, means you trust the computer to make the decision for you. Okay. I give you an example, trading decision. So algorithmic design for the trading. Nowadays is mere seconds the computer can make decision to buy or to sell, right? For certain stock, right? So using this, actually, the algorithm can read the news, right? And then based on the news, they can create decision. And this happened, there was a mistake, okay, that one Twitter from the Associated Press, okay, telling that Obama died or a certain bomb, something happened, yeah, and then suddenly the other news copying that news, okay, and then suddenly all news talking about it, right, and then because the algorithm reading that news, okay, they suddenly sell everything, and the trading collapsed on that day. Yeah? And it was kind of mistake that actually very big just because of certain mistake in the Twitter happening. Okay? So this happened because we trust the computer, okay, to make the decision. So be careful. Okay. The second part is actually you don't really trust the computer. You still make the decision as human being, right? But the computer will help you to give you suggestion. Okay. Of course, you are slower as human being than computer itself, but at the same time, this is probably safer. So when the computer make the decision, so who is responsible is not clear. Probably the programmer, probably the company that owned that algorithm, right? But when human is the one still responsible to make the decision, then that human is the one who responsible by law. Clear? So this is similar question to the automatic driving car, right? So, Google already make an automatic driving car, right? So the question is now remain, who is responsible if there is an accident, correct? So if there is an accident, who is responsible? It is the human, the owner, or Google who actually produced the car. So this is still big debate, okay, at this point. So DSS or decision support system, typical information that you put there is usually comparative. Yeah? Comparative sales figure, for example, projected revenue, okay, and you can tell the consequence, yeah, based on various decision alternatives. So this is basically like simulation. Okay, what if I do this? What if I do that? So that is what is called decision support system. Okay. So if I make a decision, before I make the decision, you can actually simulate, right? You can actually simulate what is the consequence of that decision. So that's the role of decision support system. Okay, so these are characteristics of decision support system. Yeah? Used to manage and control business, and the data is actually historical. Okay, and then you can optimize for the inquiry rather than the update, and you can use the system loosely defined. And basically, most important is DSS is used by manager and user to understand the business and to create the judgment, okay, based on data. The next part of the component of big data analysis is MCDM. What is that? multi-criteria decision making. Okay. So the simplest MCDM that I can show is something like this in this table. So you have strategy 1 up to n, and then for each strategy you define certain criterion, criterion 1 to n, okay, and then you create certain function here for each strategy and certain what is the score for the criterion, and then at the end you want to get the result, okay, which strategy is the best among all these criterion. So you can just sum all of this. You can visit my website in Revolut. I have the table of it, and I have the program that you can play around with the MCDM. Next, next component is dashboard, right? What is this dashboard? It's basically information visualization, right? It's a reporting. Why visual? Because you are dealing with management, upper level management, right? Middle to upper level management. They don't really like the text, they like visual things. Okay? So in that case, they can glance easily and then they can discuss among themselves. Okay? What to show? Okay? Chart and tables. Okay? About what? About KPI. Okay? The key performance indicator measures, and then the benchmark. Okay? What is the target? Okay? So in the same screen, you are talking about the target, the benchmark, and then the KPI. This is an example. See, for example, the KPI is current ratio, current asset, current liability. Okay? And then you will see here the time, okay, and then the value, and then what is the target. Okay? Whether we are reaching the target, below the target, okay, and so on. Okay? So these are the example of dashboard. So what is KPI? Key performance indicator are quantifiable measurement to help organization to define, to measure the progress toward the goal of organization. Okay, so that varies depend on the characteristic or the business and organization. These are the example of KPI measure. For example, in business, okay, you're talking about annual sales volume, the turnover rate, the profit itself. Okay, say you are in production, then you talk about productivity per working hour or the number of new customers. So it is you who decide the KPI. Okay? So if you are creating a website, then you will talk about maybe the total members, the total number of impression, page impression, and so on. Okay? If you are NGO, a non-profit organization, so probably talking about the number of volunteers, okay? The number of user involvement. Say, if you are a university, probably you talk about the number of students graduating per year. So these are examples of KPI measure. The next component is data warehouse, right? So what is data warehouse? So data warehouse is an integrated collection of data, okay, extracted from operational, from historical, from external database. So from various resources, and then you screen, you edit, you standardize, okay, so that you can retrieve it automatically, and then you analyze automatically, so that you can provide business intelligence for managerial decision making. So data warehouse is a single one, integrated, right? Complete, consistent storage of data obtained from variety of different sources, okay, made it available for the end user and the business context. So based on these two, you can clearly see, okay, that data warehouse is collection of diverse data, right? It's subject oriented depending on the field that you are aiming. Okay, the aim of data warehouse is not operational, but it's at the executive level, decision making. Okay, so it is also update driven. Okay, it's not transactional driven. is update driven, meaning that you update time to time. For example, daily update, weekly update is up to you. Huh? So it's often the update is copy of the operational data. So you will have two types of database. One is operational database. The other one is data warehouse. It's a separate database. Okay? So in the data warehouse, the data is very big. That is a copy of operational data. So the characteristic of data warehouse is it is integrated. It's not just one data, but many data. And then second is time varying, meaning there are time component on it, okay, when it was collected. Okay. Next is non-volatile. What does it mean? It means data does not change. When you collect, it's accumulated. Right? So it's subject oriented. That means depending on the subject. Okay. For example, customer, product, sales. So the focus is on the modeling analysis of data for the decision maker, not on daily operation, not for transaction processing. Okay. So data warehouse provides a simple, concise view around the particular subject. For example, the customer, the product, the sales, and so on. By excluding data that are not useful for decision support process. So there are data that actually just noise, you just remove that data. Okay. And the removal of the data is called data cleaning. Yeah, the ETL a while ago. Yeah, extract, transform, and load. So you create a data that already clean inside data warehouse. So data warehouse is constructed by integrated multiple heterogeneous data sources. Okay, so for example, you have relational databases, you have flat file, okay, you have online transaction record. All of these integrate into single data warehouse. And then the data cleaning is also applied for all those data, okay, consistently. For example, the naming convention, the encoding of the structure attribute, and so on. For example, the hotel price, yeah, you will have currency, right? The currency will be consistent. For example, if the currency is in US dollar or in rupiah, right? So it will be consistent in that currency. Other measure will be converted to single currency. The tax, the same thing. Yeah? Will have certain tax for each country or each province or each state. Okay, whether the breakfast cover or not will be included there. Okay, now when the operational data is moved or copied into the data warehouse, okay, everything already converted into the standard things that you want. So that means the data inside the data warehouse is already clean. Okay. Next characteristic is time varying. So the time horizon of the data warehouse is significantly longer than operational data system. Okay. So in operational database, you have current value of the data, right? Today or this week. Okay? When you put into data warehouse, we are talking about historical perspective. So we want to know what will be in the past year or will be past 5 years. So we want to see the trend. Okay. So its key structure in the data warehouse contain time element, whether it is explicitly or implicitly. Okay. So while in the operational data may or may not contain time element. So this is the difference between the operational data and data warehouse. Okay. The last part is data warehouse is actually non-volatile, right? What does it mean? It means physically it is separate from the operational. So it doesn't change. You update only certain time. for example, every end of the day or every weekend, okay, you update the data from the operational database into the data warehouse. Okay, so it means we do not have the volatility of the transaction processing there. What does it mean? In the transaction processing, there is a concurrency control mechanism, right? So when there is a transaction in the database, for example, you want to write into the database, okay, the database is locked from the other. For example, you have many database system, okay. For each transaction, you need to lock, and then you release again, and then the other transaction will enter, right? But this will not happen in the data warehouse because the lock mechanism does not require in here. So in that case, you only have two operations, which is initial loading of the data and the access of the data. Up to here, is there any question? Or you give me feedback, what did you learn?
Sorry, could you please like re-explain and give us like the real example of the non-volatile characteristic, because I kind of don't understand what is it.
The non-volatility, okay.
Yes.
At the data warehouse, inside the database, if you have many, okay, if you have many database, if you have only one database, no problem. Every time you input the data inside the database, you need to lock. There is a called concurrency control. That means you need to lock the database so that the other transaction will not enter, right? For a split of seconds, you need to lock that database so that one transaction only can enter there. Otherwise, the database will be messy, you know, when you have parallel processing, right? So you need to lock, and then you insert the data, and then you release the lock. That is what happening inside the database, the algorithm inside. Especially if you have parallel processing. Okay? Because of that, okay, the data become volatile. Right? Keep changing, the data keep changing. That is the meaning of operational database. Well, in data warehouse, you don't need that. Because data warehouse is not transactional. Right? It's big data, right? It's a copy from the operational database. Can you get it? You have two databases. Huh? One is operational, the other one is data warehouse. The data warehouse is a copy, okay? It's a copy of transactional. So the transactional database is, say for example, the point of sales, yeah, in the supermarket. Right? Every time the cashier scan the barcode, that is transactional. Right? Go inside into the database. Got it? So
Yes.
now from that transactional database, every end of the day, you copy. So update, right? You update means you copy inside that data warehouse. So because you only do update one time, copy one time every night, right? Or every weekend, that means you don't need concurrency control mechanism. You don't need to lock because it's only one, it's not parallel. So in that case, it's non-volatile. The data does not change. Is it clear or?
Yeah, it's pretty clear, sir, for me.
Thank you. So is there any other question? So the traditional, there are two ways, data warehouse compared to the traditional database integration. maybe I will draw it here. Okay, so this is the traditional database integration. So they create a wrap. So we have various sources, and then there is a program called wrapper. Okay, on top of that, it's database. And then now if the client want to ask, okay, certain query, certain question, okay, then there is another program called mediator that will talk with the wrapper here and then search inside the source. So this is the traditional way of query-driven approach. Okay? Another approach is called data warehouse. Okay, so what happened in here, instead of creating wrapper here, so from various sources of data, okay, you integrate first, you copy first into a single data. That single data is called data warehouse. Okay, so then when the client search, okay, they will not search in the original source. They will search directly in that single data warehouse. So in this case, easier, right? As if you have only one big database rather than many databases. Okay, so that's the concept of data warehouse in here. Can you see the difference? Yeah. Instead of many databases, okay, this is query-driven database. It means you have several program here. The program one, the first program is wrapper. The second program is mediator, right? And then you will search in various sources. So no, we copy everything from that sources into data warehouse. So that's another approach here. So data warehouse here is actually better approach, okay, because now you have an integrated, okay, so you have an integrated storage of all the data. So when you query directly in the data warehouse rather than from the various sources. Okay, so can you see the difference? Many sources or single source, which is the data warehouse. Yeah. When we say integration here, what does it mean? It means copy and then clean. Okay. So when you do cleaning based on that metadata, what is the meaning of metadata? For example, each variable in the data, each field in the data, you have certain values, isn't it? Okay. So that values will be stored in the metadata. So this is like a lookup table. Metadata is telling what is the data about the data. So that means what is this data about? Okay. Is this numeric? Is this strings? Or is this date? Okay. What is, if it is a lookup table, so what is the value of that lookup table? That's the meaning of metadata. So now I want to contrast between data warehouse and operational database. Yeah? So the operational database is called OLTP, or online transaction processing. Okay, so this is basically traditional relational database. Okay, so it describes the processing at operational site. For example, the point of sales, the purchase, inventory, banking, manufacturing, payroll, and so on. So okay, in accounting also. And the second part is OLAP. Okay, OLAP is called online analytical processing. Okay, so OLAP is the one that dealing with big data. Okay, describe the processing in the data warehouse. Okay. When we talk about big data analysis, we are talking about OLAP. It's not about OLTP. Okay. If you have learned about database, usually what you learn is actually the first one, which is the OLTP. Okay. So how to insert the data, how to update the data, right? How to delete the data, that is OLTP. Okay. Now, when you do an OLAP operation, okay, then you will suddenly see different point of view. Okay, how to transpose the data, how you will talk about the hierarchy in the data, and so on. Maybe in the middle of this semester, you will start to learn about OLAP. Okay. Or you can start to see it. I have the slide and already in Lentera, right? So you can start to see that. Anyway. Okay. So, again, this is still introduction. So I just introduced all the terminologies here, right? So within this semester, you will learn more detail about all of this, right? So the OLTP is the usual database for the transactional processing. Okay, it's mostly update. Yeah? Every time you have a transaction, you update it, right? Many small transactions here. So the data is small. Okay, so megabyte to terabyte of data. So basically, this is raw data for clerical user. Okay, this is the most up-to-date data. Okay, consistency and recoverability is critical in this case. Now, for the big data, we are talking about OLAP, okay, not OLTP. So what is this? Mostly read. That means you don't update. Update is only overnight, right? Or in the weekend. So one time in a while. Not every seconds you do the update in OLAP, yeah? Unlike OLTP. And then the query can be very long, can be very complex, okay? Unlike the operational. And then the number of data is big, okay? So at least gigabyte or terabyte of data. And nowadays is actually much bigger than that, okay? And what we want is not for a clerical user, but for decision maker, okay? For analysis. So we want to summarize the data, we want to consolidate the data. Okay? Oh, there is in between. Okay, so this is called data mart. What is this? This is, okay, this is like a data warehouse, okay, but it's actually smaller. So this is still transactional and the data warehouse combined, okay? So they call it data mart. Usually in the part of organization, not the whole organization. So for example, for marketing only, yeah, for the customer only and so on. So this is like a similar to data warehouse, but only partial, yeah, not integrated for the whole organization. Okay. So, and yeah, so it does not require enterprise-wide consensus. So the question in here, if you want to create data mart rather than data warehouse, the question is later on, how do you want to integrate for the whole organization? Yeah, long-term integration may be the problems. Okay. Okay, up to here first before big data solution. So, is there any question or feedback from you? What did you learn so far? What is the difference between transactional and data warehouse? Anyone can give me feedback? Should I call names? Okay, what is that?
Traditional is mediator, while like data warehouse is update driven.
What does it mean? Tell me.
It is like what integrated like in the data warehouse. It is like start in how can I explain it? I cannot like explain it though.
Okay. You need to know how to explain it, because when you want to propose this to your organization, right? you need to know how to explain this, correct?
Yes.
No. So without ability to explain this concept, okay, then you cannot propose, correct? You can say, oh, I have learned big data analysis, and then you say, you propose to your organization, we need to create this. What is that? How do you explain that? Right? Of course, you will not be the one who create, but at the same time, you need to know how to propose, isn't it? You need to know how to explain to your manager, to your parent probably, if it is your family business, right? Why we need data warehouse? Why we need the big data? Why they need to pay the cost to create this? And what is that big data? What is the advantage of this? How do you explain? Anyone? So, say, in your dinner table, you talk to your parent, and then your parent have a certain business, right? So, oh, father, we need to create this big data so that your business will start to become informed decision. What is this? What is this big data? Oh, it will have a decision support system. It will have a data warehouse, right? You start to talk about KPI. What is that KPI? Can you explain? Anyone? Come on.
You mean explain about KPI, sir?
Okay, go.
Okay, let me try, sir. So KPI is like to help the companies to measure the progress, I think, towards the goals,
Correct.
maybe.
Correct.
And KPI stands for key performance indicator. So it can help business and then through the website or maybe the non-profit organization and also
Okay,
university.
very good, very good. So now let's go to the detail, okay? Let's discuss more detail based on your answer. So let's talk about what business you are interested in.
You mean in the future, sir?
Now,
The business.
what business?
Wait, sir, let me think. Maybe I don't know, wait, sir. Maybe let's say supermarket business, maybe.
Okay, supermarket business. Okay, let's
Yeah.
talk about supermarket business here. Okay, so in your supermarket business, right? So how do you define KPI?
Through my supermarket business, I think using KPI we can analyze the turnover of the employees, yeah, and then the number of new customers and the sales volume
Okay, very
and
good.
the profit we get yearly, maybe like that, sir.
Okay, very good. How about the inventory, for example, right?
Yeah, inventory too.
Okay, okay. Then that is the measure, okay? But when
Yes.
KPI, right, you need also to put the benchmark. Say
Oh, yeah.
the KPI is what?
I'm sorry, sir.
Example of one of the KPI, the one that you measured a while ago. Can you?
Oh, maybe the number of profit yearly, maybe.
Okay, so yearly profit. Then you need to set the benchmark. How much
Yes, sir.
yearly profit that you want to get? Right?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes, sir.
so the benchmark is the target that you want to say, okay, so if I get 1 billion rupiah per year profit, that is yellow. Okay,
Yes.
if 1.5 and above, okay, that is green. Okay, but below 1 billion per year, that is red.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so that is the
Understand.
example of KPI. Okay,
Oh yeah, yeah.
very good, very good. So anyone else want to explain about big data analysis component, for example, to your parent? Come on. Anyone? So many students here. Hey, can you open your video, please? Okay. Oh, Michael Chipto. Can you explain something to me? What did you learn? Anyone?
I learned about the purpose of big data analysis, sir.
Okay, tell.
The main function of big data analysis will be used for the middle to top management because big data analysis will um, improve decision making in in a business since you have the data and information, and then it will also make the business more effective.
Okay, so tell me now, okay? Tell me now about the business that you already involved with or you already see in your daily life. Are they
Uh,
are they doing informed decision or they are doing intuitive decision?
I think they're still doing so.
So
I mean, for the company that I know.
yeah, for the company that you see in Indonesia, right? Majority still based on intuition. The decision is based on intuition, right? So how are you going to say that actually informed decision based on data is actually better than just intuition?
So because if you make a decision based on information and data, then it is based on facts and uh, data that you never see before, and I mean it will add to your knowledge. So if there's some kind of problem in the data, it will be shown, and you can work accordingly and make a decision according to the data.
Okay.
Rather than intuition, that means that the information is not complete when you make a decision.
Anyone else want to say something? Yeah, thank you, thank you. Okay, let me continue then. In this part, okay, can you see my slide?
Yes, sir, we can.
Okay, good. So these are the example from one of the book reference that I already put in Lentera, so you can also read there, okay, the detail of this, right? These are the example that you have the data warehouse, okay, and inside that data warehouse is using SQL, you see, and then there is a statistic that you can use, and because the data is very big, okay, so there is a technology called Hadoop and MapReduce. What is this? Basically, these are the technology that do the analysis based on parallel processing. Okay, so Hadoop and MapReduce is a technique to do parallel processing. When your data is huge, very huge, right? Say tera or peta byte, okay? then to analyze is very slow. Okay, so then what you need is to do a parallel processing. That means you distribute the analysis through many computers, parallel computer. Okay, so many CPUs, and then combine it. So MapReduce is basically you spread, you map it into different processing units, and then you get back, and then you reduce it into the actual things that you want. Okay, so these are the technology of parallel processing that help in the big data solution. Okay? And of course, the data can be put into text or graph also, right? So nowadays there is also what is called integrated discovery analytics. So basically this is data mining, okay, that plug into the data warehouse. Okay, so in terms of the storage, you can see depending on the programming model, you can have many different type here. So the most important here is probably MapReduce, which is basically parallel processing, all of this. Okay, in terms of database, you have a different model. Okay, so you have key and value. So basically, it's kind of dictionary. Okay, or you have a big table of column oriented. Or another technique is to use a document model. So this is like JSON type. So this is like hierarchical of key values inside. Okay. So MongoDB is an example of this that is quite well known. So you can search all of this keyword in Google so that you can check what is that. Okay. So in terms of the acquisition, that means you collect the data. Remember, data warehouse is a collection of data from various sources, right? So then you need to integrate those data. Okay. For example, okay, you get the data from sensing device, so sensor, right? Or you get the data from the log, okay, of certain data from website, for example. Or you create a crawler. Okay. Do you know what is crawler? Anyone? Have you ever heard about web crawler? No? No one heard? Okay. Web crawler is basically like this. So you start with certain website. Okay. Inside that website has certain links, isn't it? Right? So then the crawler will read of that link, put it into database, and then go one by one into that link. Okay, so you have every page in the web, you have link, right, to other website, right? So that link will be visited, okay, and then they will collect the text, the image on that website, put in the database, okay, and then visited another link that you have already gathered. So the program that can crawl over the web, okay, based on those links is called web crawler. That basically you collect the data automatically from the web. Check in Google. Check. You have internet, right? So you check in Google. What is web crawler? Yeah? Or web spider? It's the same thing. So you can start to collect data from the web. And nowadays a lot of web crawler tools available for you, so you can just use it, rather than creating on your own. So you can also capture the packets or the mobile device. Yeah? And all of this data that you acquired, okay, then you can put it into integrated data and you do automatic cleaning, okay, and you remove certain redundancy. For example, if the link is already visited, then don't visit again. Okay? So these are the big data architecture. Okay. In the left side here is the actual type of the data. For example, machine log, right? Web and social media, okay, and then image and so on. And then you put all of this data into a data platform. Okay, you do certain exploratory analysis, and then all of this you put it into data warehouse. So you will create the predictive analysis, business intelligence, and so on. Okay, and then on the right side here is the implementation, right? So used for application, for marketing, yeah, for mathematics, for all the analytical tools here. Okay, and then the last part here is the who are the people who actually use the big data. Okay, they can be a marketing executive, customer, frontline worker, business analyst, data scientist, and so on. Right. So these are the key components of the cloud computing. So if you look at this, there are many components. So you can see we have virtualization, right? We have parallel computing, distributed storage, big data application and service, and so on. So what happened is this. When your data is very big, okay, most probably you don't put it into just a single database in your home, okay? That most probably you want to put it in the cloud. Why? Because the cloud service will do certain automatic backup for you, and then you can access anywhere, anytime, right? So there you start to have what is called cloud computing. So example of cloud computing, Amazon Web Service, yeah, AWS, right? Google Drive, Dropbox, those are called cloud computing. That means you store your data in the cloud. That means the computer is somewhere else. Okay. Now, the next question is this. Why we want to separate the data warehouse, okay, separate from the transactional processing? Because they have different function. Okay? Because they have different data. Okay? For example, if you have a missing data, okay, then decision support requires historical data which operational database cannot maintain. So then in the data warehouse, you already fill in the missing data, right? Next is data consolidation. Later we'll talk about aggregation and summarization. Okay, for each data that you have, okay, so we call this data cube later on. Okay, you will start to create the aggregation, the summary of each data. Next is the quality of the data source. Okay, the different sources usually have inconsistent data representation, different code format that you need to reconcile, right? In that case, you need to clean the data first. So the process of cleaning from the operational data inside the data warehouse is called ETL. So this is part of the automation here. Okay, that's why we really need to have a certain one big data warehouse that actually clean and integrated. Okay. So data science or data mining is a process to automatically discover useful information in the large repository. Okay? So from the data warehouse a while ago, okay, now you have another component is data science or data mining. You want to process this data to find the pattern, to find the knowledge. See, right? What do you want to find? Something that is non-trivial, okay? Something that implicit, that previously unknown, probably useful, right? So then we have many names here. Okay, data mining, knowledge discovery, yeah, knowledge extraction, pattern analysis. Okay, so sometimes because people think that this is already in, yeah, trending, they will think that everything is data science. So, but it is not, right? If you just do a simple query, simple search, that is not actually data science. Yeah? If you do a deductive expert system, that is also not data science. Right? So, data science have several components. Okay, so the first two components, so I will put here with the pen, the first two components, this is called supervised learning. Yeah? Supervised learning. Okay, and this one, clustering, is called unsupervised. This is okay. The third part is association, and the last part is anomaly detection. So we will discuss this later on in this class, right? One by one. Okay. So now, if you look at this process, okay, so you have the many databases, you clean this, okay, and then you integrate into single data warehouse, okay, and then now you extract certain data of the data warehouse, okay, with this task relevant data, and then you process it to find the pattern. From the pattern, you evaluate, and then you gain the knowledge. So this is the process of knowledge discovery from the data warehouse. Right? So what is this? Oh, this is the example of what is this? The structured data. Okay, so this is the architecture of the infrastructure. Okay, that you can see here. Okay, in terms of the data, you have many types. Okay, so you have structured data, semi-structured data, unstructured data. Then you acquire that data, you put that into one database repository. Okay, from here again you create from the database, you create the data visualization. Okay, you do all operation, and you do some kind of real-time analysis, and then you can add certain rule inside that to create the output here. Yeah? The output is probably dashboard, the statistical analysis, predictive analysis, and visualization, right? So this is the architecture of MapReduce. So you have a database, yeah, the data warehouse. So HDFS is Hadoop data file system, yeah, and then you separate that data into many, yeah, okay, and then you map that into the CPU, right? So different computer, and then you do collect a thing. So after you map into computer, each computer will do partial computing, okay, and then you put back into single part back to the database again. Okay, so that's why we call this map and reduce. Okay, so because we map into many parallel computing, and then we reduce it back into one database again. So in terms of analysis, you have many. You can use Excel, you can use R. We will use Excel and Weka here, and probably certain Pythons if you want. And in terms of architecture, you can have real-time or offline. And the methods, yeah, basically we do a statistic like cluster analysis, factor analysis, correlation, data mining, regression, and so on. So this part, the big data method with this parallel computing, we will not do in this class, unfortunately. Otherwise, you will go deeply into the programming, but you will learn the concept only. Okay. So the application, okay, is up to you. Okay, these are example of applications. So enterprise, medical, okay, smart grid, online social network, IoT, yeah, Internet of Things, collective intelligence. And the field again is up to you, okay, depending on the field that you want to use in that big data. So for your group project, so you can select any of this. This is an example of big data in banking. You will see here, okay, when nowadays probably banking is only talking about the saving balance, right, available credit and loans. But actually using big data, you will also see different database that you will put integrated into ones, okay, including the social media, okay. So it's not just internal data from your bank, but including external data from the web and social media. So you put it one into single database, okay. This is an example, for example, fraud detection, okay. So based on the historical data, so you compute the transaction statistics, right? From there, you can build the customer profile, and then you create the rules. This is the nice thing about the data mining or data science. You can create rules based on data, and then you can create the relationship. So you can check, okay, whether certain customer is actually doing fraud or not. Okay, so then if you want to use this, okay, based on your customer profile and rule a while ago, and you have the real-time transaction, okay, then you can combine this, and then you will say, oh, this customer is actually doing some kind of anomaly. So it will inform the decision maker, including the operational teller, that, oh, be careful with this type of customers. Okay, because you are in accounting, so this is example of financial risk analysis framework. So you get the historical data from all the transaction, right? Then you can start to build the risk analysis. Huh? Risk means the distribution, okay, of each data, each variable here. Okay, whether it is technical risk, contract, client risk, and other. So then you can start to differentiate the characteristic of the contract, for example, based on industry, based on sector, and so on. Okay, and then you start to create the root analysis. You ask why this happened. Okay, and then you can check the financial data and deliver to the customers, telling, oh, this kind of fingerprint, okay, this kind of customer, this kind of transaction probably have certain risks. Okay, so this is the example of application in big data in financial risk. So in telecom industry, yeah, this is another example. So you have, for example, subscriber data, okay, how the usage of the data, the subscriber contract, and then you probably also have the social media data. Again, you put all of this data into a single data warehouse. Okay, you transform that into a single data warehouse, and then you do what is called customer analytic, okay, product pricing, operational analytic, and then you do reporting, yeah, data visualization based on this data warehouse. If you can look at these examples, all of these are the same thing. Yeah? You have data that collected from various sources. Okay, you analyze that data and then just visualize or report to the user. Right? This is another example of big data in healthcare. Okay, so where the data come from? The data come from the doctor, from the nurse, the notes, the medical record. So billing data, the patient feedback. So these are different type of data, isn't it? Then you can put them together. Okay, so you transform it data into a single database, yeah, with this data warehouse. and then you start to do what is the content analysis, predictive analysis, operational analysis. Again, you create a report, okay, based on this big data analysis. Is this clear or not? So I'm talking this so that you can start to think about, oh, what kind of project I want to do in this class. Yeah. See, this is another example in social media analysis. So these are example of different type of social media, probably YouTube, Facebook. Probably you have certain forum, community, or the web at the end. And then you collect all of this data. Okay, you probably want to do what is called sentiment analysis. So you have the comments, and then you do sentiment analysis based on the natural language processing. So you check the text. Certain word is associated with positive or negative. That's the meaning of sentiment analysis. Okay, there are many tools that are available already, so you can just check and then use this. And then you can present the sentiment presentation of this result. So this is another example. So look at this technology for big data. Okay, so you have at the bottom here is the name of platform, okay, for the cloud computing, and the top here is actually what kind of strategy, or innovation, social management, culture, education, basic theory, research, big data. These are the strategic, and then in the middle here is the framework. Okay, so what kind of database, what kind of analysis that you use. So you can check all of these terminologies on your own in Google. Okay, so now if you want to do sentiment analysis, again you need to create web crawler, and then you clean the data, and then you extract whether that data is actually positive or negative or neutral. That's mean the sentiment. Okay, and then you talk about it as a report in the dashboard. Okay. So, in terms of the update, okay. So, there are two parts of update. Okay. One is user in this left side. So there is a user feedback, and then you create the features. Okay, and then you update. The database is updated with the sentiment and post the features. So this is a single post is updated in the database. Another way, which is actually better, okay, is the update in one post will actually propagate in the neighborhood of the post. So you can start to see the update of one sentiment. Okay, now you check the update between their friends. Okay, between their friends, for example, the neighborhood here is including the friends or the feature neighborhood. Yeah, it's not just one feature, but the neighborhood of the feature. So this is the more advanced technique to update the sentiments. So say this is an example of using k-mean clustering, right? So to identify who are the influencer, okay? From the social media analysis, you collect the data, and then you just collect the number of friends, for example, okay, and the number of posts that they are doing, the number of response. Then you can start to cluster this, and then you can start to identify who are the hubs in the social influencer here. So if you know the influencer, so you know the influencer actually the one that create more money for the social media, right? You probably want to market through them rather than through other people in this example. Oh, okay. So up to here, is there any question or feedback?
Sir,
Yes.
I want to ask a curious question, just a curious
Go,
question.
go.
So
Very good. Yeah.
sometimes in website we got like we need to confirm whether we are a human or not,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Captcha.
Is it because of web crawlers or
Correct. That's correct.
I see.
So
Okay.
people can easily use web crawler. In fact, you can download web crawler easily, right? You just search web crawler Python, for example, and then you can download that. And then you start to run it, and then suddenly you become Google, right? You create a robot that crawl, right? So the certain website, many websites actually use this to avoid the web crawler, the bots. Okay, then they use CAPTCHA. Okay, you are bot, not a human. Then they should not be able to solve that CAPTCHA. But the web crawler nowadays is very smart, right? The web, for example, Spacy, for example. So this is a web crawler that actually you can download and very smart. They can also solve CAPTCHA, right? So it's like Tom and Jerry, right? So the cat and the rat, which one they run, which one fast? So the technology becoming more and more that people creating bots nowadays. Okay, so you can create fake news easily. You see technology of deep fake. Yeah, deep fake. You can type in Google deep fake, then you can download and then you can create someone else using their face, but actually you. And then you can create their video and you are the one who talk. So this kind of technology exists, okay, and it's open source. Then you can download, you can even use. Then a lot of people are creating fake news, also, right? So just example of experience. So there are certain terrorist organization that used, for example, the social media, right, to communicate to each other and then to coordinate their attack, for example, through social media, for example, Facebook, right? So now if the military probably want to analyze the social media so that they will know in advance, okay, whether there is a protest or there is certain movement, right, that they can know in advance and then they can be more prepared. So this is a kind of real-time big data analysis also. Yeah. So the world is becoming more interesting. Any other comment, question, curious question? That's fine. What did you learn? Topic. So at least you get introduced what is big data, right? Right. So data is now becoming big because of many sensing devices, right? Because of the internet also. Right? So, and you can collect all of this for your advantage. In fact, this is the important part here. Why big data? Yeah? Data is actually gold. Okay, gold rush nowadays. Why? Because if you know the data, okay, you will be informed, right? Using this technique of data science, you can gain knowledge, and this data science need big data. So the AI, okay, artificial intelligence, okay, they need big data as their food, yeah, to produce knowledge for you, or decision, informed decision for you, right? So What does it mean? Meaning, if you have big data, okay, then you will have competitive advantage over other businesses. I give you an example. Why many businesses now creating a loyalty card? Why? Yeah. Based on the loyalty card, you can track the transaction of that particular customer, isn't it? Right? Using the loyalty card, oh, I will give you discount if you have a loyalty card. Say in the supermarket, if you have the card, their card, okay, before you do a transaction, they will scan your card, right? That means they know you are buying this and that product. And then you also tell them, right, your customer profile, right? What is your gender? What is your age? Where is your house? Correct? You tell them everything. That is the data that they get from you. Okay? Based on that, you aggregate, right? Then you can say, oh, certain gender, certain age, certain education level, certain income level will have certain pattern of buying. Certain location of the geographical location will have a certain pattern of buying, purchasing in that supermarket, for example. Right? And if there is certain time, for example, in certain neighborhood at certain pandemic, right? Then you will know what the supermarket need to provide in that neighborhood. Yeah, they can say we serve you better. At the same time, they can do upselling, right? Hey, I can offer you this and that based on your preference. How do they know their preference? Because you purchase something, right? Right? When you purchase something, they know what did you purchase. That means they know your preference. They track everything about you. Right? Probably they know about you more than your mother. Right? Okay? So, what happened? If they know you more about yourself than you yourself, then they can offer you much better. Then money will come out of your pocket because, oh, this is what you really want to buy. Right? And then put this together with another technology, for example, chatbot. What will happen? You make friend with the chatbot, isn't it? Right? And because you make friend with them, what will happen? You will trust that chatbot. And then the chatbot will become marketing tool for you. Whatever the chatbot tell you, you will buy. Correct. So that means whoever owns the chatbot will become the superpower company in the future, isn't it? From where the data come from? From you. So owning the data, okay, will become the gold. Look at this. In the past, each company have their own needs market, right? For example, a car manufacturer, or they have only niche market of buying car, right? Okay. Supermarket, of course, there is a niche market of buying certain product in the supermarket, right? But now, if you have all this data, you will be on top of all these companies because now you have their preference, now you have their behavior, right? You will know everything about their customers. So nowadays, the privacy issues, especially in Indonesia, is not that big yet. People still happily give their data to everyone else, isn't it? Right? But if you realize that this is actually, they are tracking you, if you start to realize that they are actually using this data, okay, to go inside beyond your privacy, then you start to think about what is the meaning of big data here. Give me comments. Give me feedback. You want to discuss something? Anyone? Okay, if not, so let's go to the, okay, I will give you a short discussion about balance scorecard. Is it okay? Let me check if I have it in from here. Okay, okay, you can refresh your Lentera. And there is slide about balance scorecard there. Can you see it? Can you see it? Yes.
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so let's go inside that. So I will explain balance scorecard in a while, so that you can see what is the meaning. Okay, just probably 1 hour I can finish this. Okay. Yeah. So this is part of business intelligence. So okay, so I will skip the discussion, but important here is actually asset. Okay, asset. What is asset? Asset is any item of value owned by individual or corporation that can be converted into cash. Right. So there are two parts. One is called tangible asset, which is anything that has material or physical existence, and the second part is intangible asset. Okay? So it's anything that company owns but does not have physical existence. So in the discussion here, I put, you probably want to ask this question. Yeah? What are your tangible assets? Okay? What are the strategy to maintain and grow your asset? And then how do you transform the intangible asset into profit? The intangible asset including the IP, yeah? Intellectual property. Okay? So these are the example of tangible and intangible asset. Yeah? So tangible assets is including the cash, machine, vehicles, property, buildings, and so on, yeah? Including the website. Intangible asset is like the brand, the knowledge, the information, right? Your worker, yeah? The knowledge worker, and the patent, the trademark, the IP. Right? So human capital, intellectual capital, knowledge worker is actually intangible asset. So if you look at this before, okay, that human capital in 1980s probably around 38%. Nowadays it's like 75% already include in the intellectual capital. Okay, then the next discussion is what is actually the vision of your business, and how do you communicate your vision to your staff or your employees, right? And how do you measure your strategy that has been implemented into action? So these are the discussion that you start to think in terms of your business, right? So now, these are example of strategy. Okay. Hey, what is the strategy in Petra? What is the vision and mission in Petra? Can anyone tell that? So these are examples of strategy. You can read by yourself, right? So what is balance scorecard? The balance scorecard is actually the middle part, okay, between the strategy and financial measure, between the mission and vision, and the values and the strategy itself. So I can say that the balance, say if you have a business, okay, so usually you focus on revenue, right? On the profit, correct? But if you only think about the profit and revenue, okay, so then you can start to see your strategy start to fail. Why? Because there are other part of the business strategy that is unfulfilled. Okay? So there are certain barriers to implement the strategy. Okay? These are example of the barrier. One is the vision barrier. Example, only 5% of the workforce actually understand the strategy. So I just asked you a while ago, what is the vision and mission of Petra? You don't know, right? Okay. So another is a people barrier. So probably only 25% of the manager have incentive to link with the strategy. Next is the management barrier. So probably around 85% of the executive teams will spend less than 1 hour per month discussing strategy. So mostly we'll just discuss operational. And the last one is probably the resources strategy. So 60% of the organization does not link budget to strategy. So this is important. Okay, strategy must be linked to the budget. So how do you manage to create that? So Balance Scorecard is created by Robert Kaplan and David Norton. Yeah? So BSC, what is this? This is a conceptual framework to enabling organization to clarify its vision and strategy, okay, and then translating this vision and strategy into action, okay, by creating a scorecard. Okay, I will show you in a while. Okay, so what is the balance? You need to balance between financial and non-financial. It's not just profit. Okay? You need to think about long-term profit, your existence, whether your company, your organization still can survive 100 years from now. Not just this year, but 100 years from now. So next, you need to balance between internal and the external. Okay, you need to balance between the shareholder, that of course the shareholder want profit. You need to balance the shareholder with the employees, with the customers, right? What the customer want is not exactly what the employees want, right? So then you need to balance this. The next, you need to balance between short-term and long-term performance. Okay. So you're not dealing with only revenue, but you're also dealing with customer satisfaction, right? So with that, okay, you need to translate, okay? You need to translate the vision and mission into strategy. And then from there, you make it into objective in 4 fields. One is called financial. Second is customer, the third is internal process, and then the fourth is employee learning and growth. So these are the 4 fields that you need to balance. Okay, based on the objective, then you create the measure. Okay, based on the measure, then you create the KPI. Okay, so these are the steps to create the balanced scorecard. First, of course, you need to know the industry, okay? The time frame that you want to create, for example, 1 year, okay? And then you establish what is the vision and mission, and then you establish the strategy of the company, okay? So you identify the perspective, for example, what is the financial perspective from the internal organization perspective, what is the learning perspective, what is the customer perspective. So you need to add strategic reason here. And then you break down each of this perspective, okay, into a strategic aim. Okay? What is the objective? Then you identify the critical factor for success, and then you measure. Yeah, you tell what is the measure to evaluate this factor. Okay. Next, you analyze the measure, okay, as the whole to ensure that they provide the balanced picture. Okay. And then the next step is to create action plan to achieve that goal and strategy. Okay. You need to prioritize what is the important action here. And then you review continuously all of this. So these are the steps, okay? So why you need balanced scorecard? Because you need to transform your strategy into actionable performance metrics that can be analyzed, okay? You need to find the cause and effect relationship. You will draw the diagram of the cause and effect relationship. Okay. Now, what are the four perspectives here? First is employee learning and growth, right? So, how will we sustain our ability to change and improve? That's the meaning of employee learning and growth. Second perspective is internal business process. Okay. You will ask this question: at which operational process must we excel to satisfy stakeholder and targeted customers? Both. Okay. Next, you need to think about customers' perspective. Okay. How should we deliver the value to the customer in the key market segment? Lastly, but not least, you need to get the financial perspective. Okay? What must we focus to meet the shareholder expectation? So you need to balance these four perspectives in PSC. Yeah? So look at this. Okay? All this question a while ago. So you need to put all of this into the mission and vision and the strategy. Okay? So you have four parts. Now, this is the balanced scorecard example. So you can print this, right? And then you can start to fill in the scorecard here. Look at this, okay? In financial, for example, you will ask, to succeed financially, how should we appear to our stakeholder? Then you create the objective. Okay, you write down the objective. For each objective, you create the measure. Okay, and then you create the target. Okay, and then the action, the initiative. The same thing with the customer, internal business process, and learning and growth. These are the balanced scorecard. Is it clear? This is an example. Okay. So, for example, you have corporate scorecard. Okay. So the perspective is customer. The objective is to increase the customer loyalty beyond satisfied to loyal customer. The measure is customer loyalty rating. So, and then the target is 75%. Okay. Of course, within 1 year, right? So, and then you put it down into the customer service and marketing scorecard, right? In the internal process, you will say, okay, we want to increase customer loyalty, right? Then what is the measure here? You redesign the customer process, okay? The number of, you measure based on the number of redesigned customer process and service. For example, you target 5 changes. Again, you put down into the internal process, okay, for the same objective in the corporate. Say, in the IT department, you will say, okay, I will develop desktop support, right? So in that case, the measure is the service request, the number of desktop service requests completed. The target is 500 per year, for example, right? So again, this is another example. Say you want to create the vision to do a scuba diving center, right? Then you put into 4 perspective: financial, customer, internal business process, and learning growth, right? And then in the strategy, you will say, okay, financial, I want to have high and even learning, delighted customers, right? In the customer, I want delighted customers. In the internal business process, I want to have a quality equipment and process. In the learning and growth, the employees itself should learn and develop, right? And then what is the critical factor? Okay, you want to reduce the seasonality, right? You want to do, so all these factors you put, and then now you start to create the strategic measure. Okay, how much profit that you want. And then what is the action plan? Okay, so based in action plan, you start to put your budget on it. Is it clear? So now you can relate the budget into the action and the strategy. Okay, so these are the example of measure. You can just copy later if you want to create the right. These are example of a measure that you can use. Okay, I listed here many examples of measures. Right? Now, based on that, now you can start to create a visual tool, what is called strategic map, meaning the cause and effect, something like this. So, say in the financial, you have increased revenue, okay, and then you have a certain drive margin. That come from where? That come from the customer, right? We want to lead the industry, right? We want to win the right customer. We want to have certain and repositional clients. So you see that this will affect what? Okay, you can see the cause and effect based on the arrow here. And you will see also based on the measure, okay, you will see green, yellow, and red. That means the KPI inside that measure. Can you see it? Right? So you can start to see the impact, okay, one strategic objective toward others. Right. So yeah, these are the example of question and how do you link, so you can read by yourself, right? And these are example of balance scorecard with the strategic map here. Okay, start from the financial up to the customers. So you can see the arrow represent the cause and effect. If you want to maintain the customer satisfaction, you need to increase the balance scorecard of the knowledge and reduce the revision. And then from this, you need to achieve certain milestone, right? You need to create access to the tools and so on and so forth, right? So these are the examples. Nah? Again, these are other example here. If you want to create the revenue growth, you need to have customer loyalty. That means you need to have the hour of spend by the customer or solution offer, right? So in that case, you need additional database, right? And then now you measure by the number of downtime and ease of the system use and so on. So all of these are measured, okay, into number. So now the scorecard, now it can be put into computer, right? Instead of the scorecard that I showed you a while ago, now we can put it into computer, okay, into a visual element that actually you can see in the dashboard also. So you can see what is the strategic objective here, the measure, right? And then what is the actual value and what is the target, right? And whether this is actually good or bad, you can check yellow, red, and green there in the the left side. So this is example. Using this scorecard, now you can start to manage your business. Manager can check the business on a monthly basis, or weekly basis. So all this visualization is called dashboard. Similar to the dashboard of the car, right? So dashboard is a single display of all the operational report or real-time data. Okay, what do you see is actually the KPI. Okay, so then you can create the business decision on more daily basis, not just monthly. Okay, so again, based on your measure a while ago, the cause and effect, now you can also put it into impact analysis diagram, something like this. This is an example. Okay. Now, when you have the initiative or the action, right, then you can start to put the money. Okay, for each action, say for example, account training program, affiliate marketing, customer information system. So what is the actual operating budget and the capital that you have? Then you can start to see the actual budget that you need within 1 year. So you operate, before you create budgeting, you start to link this budget into strategy. Isn't this nice? Huh? Give me feedback. What do you think? So, do you want to practice balance scorecard? So, for your group project, I will give you assignment per group, okay, to create the vision and mission, your strategic, your measure, and your KPI, okay, and then you create a balanced scorecard. Is it possible to do that in 1 week? Your first assignment. Anyone want to comment, question before you get the assignment? Is it clear? Really clear, right? So, you see here, balance scorecard from the mission and vision. Okay? You pull down, right, into strategy. You pull down again into measurement. Okay? And then you pull down into KPI. KPI means the measure plus the target, yeah, when, and so on, right? And then the benchmark, right? And then from there, you pull down again into actionable plan. Okay, from the KPI, you don't just say KPI finish. No, you need to put into action. What is the actionable plan to achieve that KPI? Right? And then the next step is to budget it, right? For each action, how much is the budget? Then in 1 year, you know your budget is how much. Beautiful, isn't it? Okay, you break down, okay, from vision and mission up to the budget. Is this something new or not? Okay. Usually, look at many organizations, many business, yeah, they only talk about vision and mission, probably. Or probably they don't even have any vision and mission, right? So, or they talk about strategy, right? But at the same time, they stop there. Probably they start to create KPI, right? But again, they stop there. Okay? Now, using this balance scorecard concept, you start to see, no, it's not enough to put KPI. It's not enough to have vision and mission, correct? Now you need to have what? From the strategic objective, from the mission and vision, you create the strategic objective, you measure it, you do a KPI, you create the action, and then you create the budget. Very nice. Right? Did you ever consider that? In your organization, say you are talking about accounting here, right? So how you relate your accounting system to the overall objective of your organization. You're not talking about accounting alone, right? Accounting is just one perspective, it is financial, right? So you need to think about other perspectives as well, right? So then you start to think in terms of the organizational value, strategy. You want to create achievement to the goal of the organization rather than the goal of the department. Okay. So, okay, give me feedback. Question, comments?
Sir, may I ask?
Yeah, Amira.
Okay, so I want to clarify. So we make like our own company, and then we create the strategic objective and measure it, and then we create like the goals,
Yes.
and then until the budget.
Correct.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay, sir.
You
Thank
create,
you.
you create a fake company or real company is up to you. Okay. If it is a real company, that's even better. Right? And then you need to define the mission or vision of that company. Okay. And then you divide into 4 perspectives. Right? What is that? The financial, right? The learning and growth, right? The customer, and then the internal business process, right? And then for each of these perspective, you discuss about the strategic aim, right? And then you talk about the critical success factor, okay? And then you talk about the measure, okay? And then the action plan, right? And then for each action, you talk about the budget, okay? Then of course a feedback system, right? Whether you can achieve this budget, right? If your budget is too much, then you start, oh, come on, my profit is until here, but your budget cost is too much, then you start to discuss, oh, how to reduce this, right? So you see the balance point. Once you know the budget and you know the profit, targeted profit, the targeted cost, then you start to say, look, this cost is too much. Even in the planning state like this, you already know. Isn't that beautiful? Right? Because now you can see in the planning stage, okay, you can start to discuss, you can start to debate within your company, within your group, yeah? Hey, this is too much. Okay? If like this, we will not make profit. Right? Isn't that better? Rather than you implement everything and then in the end of the year you evaluate, oh, I lost money. That's not so good, right? It's better if doing this simulation in the planning state, isn't it? Okay, so that's why the balance scorecard help a lot, actually, because now you can calculate everything in the beginning. Okay, in the planning state, you already know, and then you can say, okay, now I will implement this. Nice. Any other question, comments, feedback? Yeah, you get it right, Amira.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah. So, anything else? So I will post in Lentera the assignment for the group. So you submit it next week, huh? Okay, and then what else? Okay, so we have the past scorecard finish, big data finish. Okay, so our class is until 11:30. You want to stop for a while before we continue? 10 minutes?
Yes, please, sir.
Okay, yes, please. Okay, so
Thank you, sir.
yeah, thank you. So you want to go to bathroom? Some people already complaining. Okay, so until now it's 10:32. So let's come back 10:45. Okay,
Okay, sir. Thank you.
we'll pause.
Possible if we postpone it, sir, because
Fine.
next week on next Monday we have an exam.
Okay. So I can put it 2 weeks from now. Is it okay? The assignment is still already in Ventera, but you want the date submission to be postponed 1 more week. Is it okay?
Yes, I think it is okay, sir. Thank you.
So I will set now to what date do you want? Instead of 21, now become 28. Is it okay?
Yes, I think it is okay, sir.
I will put that 28. Fine.
Thank you, sir.
Okay. So can you see the assignment already there? Right. So it's already 28.
The balance scorecard group, yeah, sir.
Correct.
Oh, yeah. Okay, sir.
Sir,
Yes.
if I'm not wrong, 28 is also group project. Is
Yes.
it? Or,
Yes. So
okay.
that's fine. You can start to explain about your group project also later at that time. Huh? So based on your balance scorecard, you can start already explaining, right? Oh, this is my company. This is what I want to do. Right. So I think it's very good if you can make that. Okay, so what I'm going to do. Okay, so now I will explain about a key performance indicator. I know you already know it, but this is like a review, just maybe one session, just 1 hour or half hour. It's okay. Okay, so again, my goal here is to explain the terminology. Okay, so what is SO, strategy objective? What is KPI or key performance indicator? That's all. Okay, so please distinguish this terminology. So what is the meaning of data? Dimension, measure, metrics, okay? Strategic objective, key performance indicator. We already discussed the balance scorecard and dashboard, so we don't discuss this anymore. So what is data? Data is business number that has not been analyzed or tested. Okay. So what is dimension? Dimension is data that has been categorized and structured into hierarchy. What does it mean by having a hierarchy? Something like this. Look at this. So we have 4 dimensions in this example. Okay, one is location dimension, customer dimension, item dimension, and time dimension. See, in the location dimension, we have street, city, province, country, continent. You can see the hierarchy here. Okay, of course, each country contained within one continent, several states, okay, will contain within one country. Okay? Several cities is contained within one state or province, and several streets will be contained within one city. You can see the hierarchy. Okay. The same thing with the customer. Okay, you have the name of the customer. Probably you want to categorize that customer. You probably want to group them based on sector and so on. Okay, the same with items. Okay, the name of the item, what is the brand, the category of the item, the type of the items. Okay, the easier day in here is the dimension of time. You have day, month, or weeks, yeah, and then quarter and year. You can see the hierarchy. Yeah? Hierarchy means you aggregate those below that. So within one dimension, you can have hierarchy. Is it clear, or you have question? Okay. Next, we have what is called measure. Okay. Measure is a numerical expression that provides statistical meaning, yeah, through the number of dimensions. So you have each dimension, you will create the measure. Okay. So example here. What is the meaning of statistics? The count, the total, the average, the largest, the second largest, and so on. These are the statistics. Yeah? So the sales item is the dimension in here, right? The sales of particular product brand is the dimension here. Okay. The monthly profit is the dimension here. Okay. Is it clear? Okay. So the statistic, when I said statistic here represent all the statistics. So mean, median, mode, standard deviation, maximum, minimum, range, quartile, rank, sum, count. So these are statistics. Okay, when I said statistic, including all this terminology, you already know, right? You know what is mean? Mean is the average, right? Median is when you sort all these numbers and then you get the mid value. Mode is the most frequency. Standard deviation is the deviation, meaning the value minus the average, and then you square it, and then you take the divide with the number of data, and then you take the square root. Hey. Before that, why we call it standard deviation? Probably I need to tell you this. So you have your data xi, you minus with your average, right? And then you sum all of this into I. What will happen to this? What is this sum? Anyone knows what happened to this sum? I thought you learned statistics.
It is divided, sir.
No. I'm asking you, if you have a data points and you minus with your average, what will happen to the sum? Okay. You have Excel or a spreadsheet? Google spreadsheet is fine. Okay. Open your spreadsheet now. Open your spreadsheet. Okay. Before I'm talking about this thing, so open your spreadsheet and then type any data. Okay. Any data that you put. Can you type 5 data point, 6 data point is up to you. You can put. And then take the average. And then now you minus each data point with the average. And then you sum. What is the sum? Tell me. So I open Excel here, okay, and I created random data, okay, random between 1 to 100. See, I created xi here, which is the data point. Every time, okay, I have this data point, right? every time I press F9, it will change, right? Data point change, okay? And then I will say this is my mean, my average, right? With this average, right? Average of this one, of this data point, okay? And then what you will get? Now I want to get the xi minus x bar. Okay, so what is this? So I will get this one minus the average, right? But the average must be in permanent position, so I need to put dollar sign here, right? Okay, and then I will copy, and then I will take the sum. So I will put the sum. What will happen to the sum of this deviation? This is called deviation, right? This is called deviation. What happened? The sum is zero, right? Always zero. Okay. If it's not zero, it's just a computational error, right? It's very small, almost zero, isn't it? Okay. So if you have your data, okay, you minus with the average, and then you sum, the deviation is always zero. You got it? Okay. That's why in standard deviation, you square it so that it will not become zero. Why it's zero? Because the positive side and the negative side will balance. That is exactly the meaning of average. Average means balance, right? Any data that you want to put. This is the magic of statistics, right? Any data you want to put, when you take the data minus the average, okay, and then you sum, it always zero. Okay, then what happens if you know it's zero? You cannot calculate because deviation is the sum of deviation always zero, right? Then what you will do? You square it, or you take absolute value so that it will not become zero, right? Say you square it, okay? What happened? If you square it, there's a problem there, right? What? The first problem is when you have more data points, okay, if you have more data points, your number, the sum of deviation become larger, correct? Right. So if your data, the sum of deviation become larger because of your data point, this is not good, right? Because look, you're supposed to be the average of deviation. Okay, then you divide by n, isn't it? Which is the number of data, right? So you square it and then you divide by the number of data. But still have second problem. What? Because you square it, the unit become incorrect. For example, if meter become meter square. If people become people square. Correct? So in that case, the sum of deviation, the square deviation, the unit is incorrect. Even if you take average of it. That's why you take the square root, you turn it back so that the unit become correct. Right? That is the origin of the measure called standard deviation. Okay? So, where it is, come back here. So, what you have, right, is my pen. So you have your data point minus your average, right? And then you sum with in here becomes zero, so that you will not become zero, you square it, right? But the number of data point matters in this case, so that it will not become matters. Now you divide by n, which is the number of data points. But the unit matters here, right? Then you square it, yeah? Take the square root of it, so that will not become matter. Then you have what is called sigma, which is the standard deviation. Okay, clear? So back here. Okay. Now the measure here can across any single dimension. Okay. So you can take the ratio between two measure, or you can take percentage. Okay. Now we call the measure metrics, okay, when you have measure with the target, with the benchmark. Next terminology is strategic objective. What is SO, or strategic objective? Is the description of what your organization has to do to achieve the overall mission. So SO is basically the short word for the mission. Okay. Of course, the SO can change over time. Okay. Okay, but usually does not change so much between year to year. Okay. SO itself is not measurable. Right? The strategic objective is not measurable. So to make it measurable, you need to break down into key performance indicator. Okay, so these are the example of SO. Yeah, you want to have operational excellence, you want to have customer relationship, you want to serve others, you want to have product leadership or quality, and so on. Okay, these are example of strategic objective. Okay, so try to think about the strategic objective of your company in your group project. Okay, these are example. Next is the KPI. What is KPI? KPI is high level strategic metrics. So we talked about metrics a while ago. That means you have the target and you have the measure. Okay, so it always have the target because it's metric, and it always actionable metrics because we can use this for decision, and always related to the strategic objective. So what is KPI? KPI are quantifiable measurement, okay, to help the organization to define and measure the progress toward the goal of the organization. Okay, so sometimes we call this critical success factor. So the key things to determine your performance. Okay, the KPI itself can vary depending on the characteristic of your business and organization. So there are too many indicators, but you can only stick to a few of your own KPI. Okay, so these are the example of KPI measure in business, in production, in sales, in marketing. So you can read by yourself, you can also copy, you can also develop on your own. So for example, if you are making website, probably you want to know the total members, the unique visitor, paid impression, and so on. Okay, so these are the example of KPI. Okay, sometimes the KPI can be customer oriented or non-customer oriented. It's up to you to define your KPI. Again, I just put here several examples of KPI measures. Okay, these are the measure, the variables, right? So again, this is the other KPI measure for financial. Okay, and this is the KPI measure for customers, right? And supply chains. Again, I already put internal process measure, employee learning and growth measures. Okay, so there are 5 components of KPI. Okay, number 1 is direction. Number 2 is the measure itself, the indicator. Number 3 is the benchmark. Okay, the target and the time frame. You look at this. Okay, for example, to increase, the increase or decrease is the direction. Okay, the red here is the measure, the average revenue per customer, the average production cost per unit product. These are the indicator. Okay, and then you need to put the benchmark. The benchmark is the from where. Okay, and then you have the target to where, and to what value, and then you need to have the time frame. Okay, by last second quarter of 2008 or by end of the year of 2009 and so on. Okay, so remember, okay, the metric means the measure plus the target. Okay, so can you think of other KPIs? Sometimes we put these 5 things into nice name. Okay, nice name is SMART goal. What is this SMART goal? Specific. That means significant, simple, sustainable, specific. Okay. Second is measurable. Third is actionable. Okay. And then relevant, mean realistic, reasonable, and then time bound. So the SMART goal here is exactly the same thing as this 5 component of the KPI. Okay. Now, the tips is, it is imperative that your organization to stick of the same definition for the KPI from year to year, so that you can create comparison between the same KPI over several years. Yeah. So, say you decide what to measure, then you collect the data, right? Then you analyze that data, you report the result, and then you take action. Again, you decide what to measure, the same thing. So these are the circle, right? So again, in the business process, you may have management, you may have operational support, and so on. So these are the department in your business process, right? So then first you define the strategic objective of each business process. Okay, you break down into the department. And then you define the performance requirement for the business process, which means the strategic decision. Okay, and then you define the measurement, the quantitative measurement for that objective, right? So how to do it? So you create a meeting between your group project. You just talk about it 1 or 2 times, and then you develop several indicators, right? So you do brainstorming, and then you assess each indicator against the criteria of good KPI, okay? And then next you select the best indicator for that, okay? So look at this. Criteria of good KPI. The good KPI must be direct, okay? The computation should be easy, not so complicated to compute. Maximum, probably the most complex is standard deviation, right? Objective, meaning the good KPI must be result-oriented based on certain result, okay? And valuable for strategic decision. You should be able to measure quantitatively, okay? Next is relevant or adequate, okay? Should be quantitative, that means you can measure it, and should be practical, okay? Meaning you don't define your target too high or too low, okay? So that you can really achieve within the target time that you set, for example, 1 year or 1 month, okay? And this must be reliable also. Okay, so business monitoring is basically an app to monitor the KPI in real time. So that means you already have the KPI measure, you already set the current benchmark, okay? You already know the set target that you can achieve, and you set the time frame. Now you check the difference between the target and the real KPI, okay? And then now you start to tweak the process or the resources to achieve your certain target. Okay, that is the business activity. So look at this green matrix. Okay, the green is not always above. Yeah, sometimes below, sometimes on target. For example, if it is revenue or profit or customer satisfaction score, you want it to be above the target to be green, right? If it is cost, response time, right? You want to below the target to be green. And that's why we call it green rather than, up and down below the target. Okay, so we just measure it with the color, yeah? Traffic signal color. Sometimes you want to be on target for example, if it is a quality control, right? You don't want the quality to be too high. You don't want the quality to be too low either. So the process quality control should be on target. The same thing with inventory level, right? You don't want the inventory level to be too high. You don't want the inventory level to be too low. So on target. Okay. So the green part here is tricky depending on the measure, right? So these are the example, okay? So the target can be raw value, moving target, or rolling average. Example, raw value, okay? Increase the quarterly sales volume from certain value to other numbers. So this is the raw value of sales volume. But you can also have a moving target, okay? Meaning you track the performance against the competitor or against the industrial average, right? So you increase the market share by 2.5% higher than the most dominant competitor. So the target itself is already moving. Yeah? The raw value means the target is set by absolute value that you put. The rolling average meaning you put the goal against yourself in the previous self achievement. So you want to increase the, for example, the average monthly page impression in the website by 150K each month. So you want to increase per month against last month. So there are three types of target value. Okay. Again, all of this you put that together. Yeah. So you have the strategic objective, right? And then you create the key performance indicator. Okay. Next time we'll discuss at the end of this classes. Okay. We will discuss about dashboard, and in the middle we'll talk about OLAP and the analysis. Okay, that's all about the KPI and the balance scorecard and the introduction to big data analysis. So is there any question, feedback, comments? Oh, come on, you open your video. Am I too fast? Is it okay? Tell me, what did you learn today? Let me call the person who did not open. Axel, what did you learn today? Michelle Angelina. So if I call you, you did not open your video, mean you are not there, right? Jonathan Pinotto. Give me feedback. What did you learn today? Mikael Cipto. Are you listening or not? Okay. Your internet is not stable. Okay. No, don't worry. You can still watch the YouTube video of this classes, right? That's the nice thing about online. Okay, so tell me, the others, go. Your feedback. What did you learn today? And you have any question? We still have 15 minutes before we end the class.
Sir,
Yeah, go.
I just curious about I think you mentioned about CS critical success factor. Is it the same with KPI or it is different?
What is that? CS? Can you
Critical.
critical, yeah, yeah. So we can say this is almost the same, yeah, but sometimes people talk, this is the factor, right? So in balance scorecard, you will see the critical factor is actually a kind of measure, right? But the KPI is actually not just the measure, but including the five things a while ago. Yeah, the direction, the benchmark, the target, and then the time frame. Yeah, so the critical factor is the measure itself, right? The factor, the measure. But when we talk about KPI, you need to talk about the five things, right? Is it increase or decrease? Right? What is the current situation? What is the target? And what is the time frame? So these are the five components that you need to put into the KPI, not just the measure. That's the difference. Right. So the measure is basically the factor. Okay. So you need to include not just the factor, but also the other factor, yeah, the component of the KPI. Yeah, very good.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, Lindsay. Any other question? Karin, is it clear for you?
Yes, sir. Thank you.
What did you learn?
I learned a lot of things today. So for the first one, I think I learned what is about big data analytics.
Mm-hmm.
And then I also learned about KPI and also the balance scorecard that you have explained just now, sir.
Okay, so can you make it? My question to you, can you make it?
You mean the balance scorecard?
Yes, the balance scorecard will include KPI anyway, right?
Yeah, maybe I will try, sir. I will
Okay.
try that, sir. Yes.
Okay. So question to you again, is it useful?
For the business, you mean, sir?
Yes, for the business.
Yes, of course. Just like you have said before, if we use it, we can have a competitive advantage, right, sir, towards
Right.
our competitor.
Oh.
So we can really analyze about our customer behavior and how to offer the products that is based on their what is that preference, like that, sir. So we have a competitive advantage over our competitors, like that.
Right. And not only that, you can start to balance your view. Okay. As the manager, you start to balance your view. Okay. Sometimes the manager is thinking about money only, right? But you start to think about, hey, it's not just the money, how your organization will grow. Okay. It's become a learning organization, right? How the employees will start to grow. Okay. How the employees start to loyal to you, right? So how the customer to be loyal to you. So customer is also part of your organization. It's not just the money oriented that you exploit the customer, right? But how you will think about customer as part of your organization, that actually you want them to be loyal to you. So that kind of new perspective into the business, that is the one that actually we want to bring in here. Right? So otherwise you will start to think, oh, but business is about profit, right? Let's exploit the customers. Right. That is not the way to think that way. Yeah? Because once you exploit the customer, you will have only short-term goal, right? It's not long-term. Then the question again, can your business survive 100 years from now? Right? The long-term goal. Right? So to make it survive, of course, now you start to think customer are part of your organization. It's not outside, it is the new concept that you start to think in balance between all these components or the perspective, yeah, into your organization that is actually make it beautiful, right? And then on the top of that, you start to think that from the vision and mission, from the strategy, you can put it down into action and then put it into budget, right? That is something beautiful, isn't it? So
Yes, sir.
now start to talk to your parent after this about this, right? And probably they will start to discuss. Talk to your friend about this, right? New concept that you learned today. Okay. Yeah. So then probably with that you can probably ask more questions next week. Right? When you discuss this concept with other people, okay, then it start to create a debate, right? Okay, then we can have a more livelier class next week, I hope. Okay. Oh, is there any other feedback today? Is there anyone want to create a debate? That's fine. This is very nice to discuss. Start to question.
Sir, actually,
Let's go, Josephine.
sir, actually, our group is kind of confused about the group
What is the
projects, sir.
confusion there?
The group projects, sir.
Which one?
The data.
Is it the data that you confuse?
No, like we're confused about what to do with the data. What you want us to do.
Oh, first thing first, okay? First, you create the organization. What is the objective that you want?
Oh, sir, not that one, sir. The one, the big data, 100 megabyte one.
What is the purpose of big data? You
To
don't
make
big data for the sake of big data, right? You create the big data because your organization needed to achieve your strategic objective, isn't it? Correct.
yes.
So that's why I said if you want to think about your project, okay, start with what is the mission and vision of your organization. What is your strategic objective? What will be your KPI? From there, you start to think about what data you need to achieve that KPI. Right? It's not just collecting data and then collecting garbage data. It's not so useful, isn't it? So you focus on something that's useful for you, for your organization. Right? So then what data you want to collect? Say, you tell me, oh, I get confused because I don't know how to collect data. That's fine. You can fake your data. I don't care about your real data. You got it? Say you randomize your data. Okay, you create the data. That's fine. I don't really care. But remember, if you get better data, you will get motivated because, oh, I have a real data and then I can use this. Okay. Just in case you cannot do it, you just create a random data. I will teach you how to create random data later on. Or you want me to teach you now? Random data is created by random number, right? So you can set a distribution. Okay, I will show you in Excel just in a while. Okay, so say I have I want to create a data of A, B, and C. Okay, then I said, okay, I will have 20% of these. Okay, so I will have 0.2. I have 30% of this, and I have 50% of this one. Right? Then I want to create a random data based on that distribution. What I will do, I will create what is called, this is the probability. Okay, and then I will have what is cumulative probability. So what is the cumulative? This is 0.2. This one is this one plus, right? This one and this one. Say I will say this is a traffic signal. I want to go straight line, straight, turn left, turn right. Okay. Then I want to create the data, right? So how do you create the data? So I will just say in here, if, okay, I will create a random number, and be here. Okay, random number. So, and then this is the random data, simulated data. Okay, so how many data points that you want? So I will add this with 1. So I will create, for example, 10 data points. Okay, of that straight, left, and right. How do you create? I will just use if, right? If my random number, so I will put this one is R in here, RMD, random. Yes, I will type random here. Okay, so and then I will say if my random here is less than the cumulative here, then I will use this. Otherwise, if my random number is less than the second cumulative here, I will use this, right? Otherwise, I will use this. Close, close. Okay. See, I got a new. So the K here must be put into string, right? So that I can copy down, right? There, then I will just copy. So you want a 100 number? So, see? Oh, because this is only one number. Okay. Let me check. I can create a random number here, right? So the random is not random, so I will put random number here, random. Okay, and then now I will put the same thing. Instead of random number here, I will put this random number. And this one also, instead of random number, I will put this random number on the left. Now I just copy. Now I have a lot of data that I can create, simulated data. Can you see that? Every time I press F9, I can create a new data set. Of course, you just copy. If you want 1 million data, I can just copy down. Okay. So if you know the distribution, you can simulate the data. So you collect from questionnaire, for example, your data, right? You have only few, right? So, oh, I need to get big data. How do you get? You just simulate, but you know the distribution already based on the questionnaire. Okay. Do I answer your question, Josephine, or it get more confused because of that?
Sir, I want to ask if my group already has a data set However, our data set is all numbers. Is
Yes,
that
then you can simulate. You can simulate. Based on the distribution of that small number of data, okay, you can simulate so that you can create a big data.
no, sir? It's not small number, but it's like there is text. The data
Text.
has text on it.
Text
Not
is very
all
good.
number.
Text data that you have.
Yeah.
That's very good.
TXE.
Yes, that is okay. Oh, text data is very good, not just number. Right? No problem. Text data is very good. We can analyze.
So if our yes, sir.
You can analyze text data also. Okay. In fact, we can do sentiment analysis using text data, you know. For example, Twitter data is text, right? You can use, no problem. Okay. Not just number data. So you can include any kind of data that you want. Oh, next week we will discuss about the statistic. Yeah? So what is this? The exploratory data analysis and data analysis from questionnaire, right? So we start to talk about text data and so on. So go ahead, you can read the slide before the meeting so that you can prepare and then you can ask more questions. Okay. I think I also include the, can you check in Lentera? There is also called distance similarity slide in unsupervised learning. Can you check? So inside that, there is also called text data that you can also measure. So basically, if you have text data, what you will do is to get the distance. Okay. You can measure distance between anything. You can measure distance between perception, between text, anything you can measure as distance. Okay. You can even measure love as distance. You can measure faith as distance. Okay. Next week we'll discuss about that. Okay. Everything you can measure quantitatively as distance. Okay. So if your data is not numbers but text or anything else, okay, you can include that data. That's very nice, actually. Okay, so thank you very much for today. Okay, for your attention. So see you next week then. Who is the head of the class? You want to scan the QR or something?
Hey, sir. I already
you
did
did.
the attendance.
Okay, good. Thank you very much then. So see you next week. Yeah?
Thank you, sir. See you next week.
Bye.
Thank you, sir.